Now, without further ado, the engine behind all of this work, I'd like to present to you Joe Carbone.
Good morning, and thank you, Leon. And you'll note here that this is a very large crowd this morning, probably the largest we've had at a board meeting, I think ever. We've had some pretty good crowds, but I think this is a few more than we've ever had before. And I'm sure it's the result of everybody coming to hear me. I can say that now that Dan has left. So anyways, although that the new governor had to leave, I'd be remiss if I didn't say a number of things about him that are important to say here. Obviously, we're very honored that during this transition period, he would select one of our board meetings to come and deliver such an important message as he did. You know, when I came here in 1996, he was the first chief elected official that I visited. He had been mayor of Stamford about a year, and he made it very clear, maybe 60 seconds into our meeting. He said to me that I don't like the regional workforce system. I think it needs to get changed. And he said, I'm going to be pretty intense in my efforts to make sure that you, whoever you are, I don't know who you are, he said, but you're the new president there, that you hear it loud and clear that things must change because opportunity will be impeded if we don't get our act together. And he got involved, and he stayed connected every step of the way. And when it came time to our regional efforts under the Wired Project, the partnership that we worked out with neighboring Westchester County, New York, I want you all to know that there was a critical moment. In spite of all the work, years of work we did to put that deal together, the county executive was Andy Spano. And as sometimes political minds go, he was a little bit skeptical about a partnership with a county, different state. And it took the political wherewithal, the ability to persuade of Dan Malloy to sit down with Andy Spano and basically work out an arrangement where Spano was content and he welcomed the deal and he signed it. That was a critical moment, and it was really especially critical because the notion to cross a state line to create a regional workforce development authority is the national model. And as on a national level, as our programs begin to roll out, you're going to see more and more attention. So it was a critical step that he took, and it wouldn't have happened. Several different reforms we made to our one-stops over the years were the idea of Dan Malloy when he was the mayor of Stamford. Our general culture of this organization, and he made reference to it any number of times this morning, the notion of being sort of a business-type private not-for-profit, to be aggressive in doing things that are very different, taking risk. Dan, as a chief elected official, was a major promoter of that. And I'm always noticing when you drive around Stamford, you see these signs. And Jack Conlon's responsible for putting them up. The signs that say Stamford, a city that works. And it does. And I really look forward to the day when we can see signs that say Connecticut, a state that works. This guy is hard at work to make that happen, and I think he is. So we welcome the opportunity to have Dan as our new governor. I always have the privilege to begin my remarks by paying tribute to either a business or an organization that has done something very worthy. I frequently have the opportunity to mention Griffin Hospital in Derby. I saw their president, Pat Charmel, one day last week, and I told him he must be running out of wall space because they get so many plaques and awards, but we ought to take really particular interest in this one because he continues to win awards based upon votes or comments or sentiments that come from his workforce. People who are just happy with the way the hospital runs, with how they as employees are treated. So you'll see in this case, they've been named by Connecticut Magazine, 23 Connecticut companies as great places to work. Griffin Hospital is one of only 2. Now, Bill Pawanda could not be here today. He's a member of our board. He's their VP for HR. So join me in congratulating Griffin Hospital. Most of you here probably don't know who David Moore is. I met David about 7 or 8 years ago. He's a resident of Rye, New York, and he's the grandson of Joseph Pulitzer. I met him in my efforts to try to put together the deal with the Wired Project. A very wise man and a person who thinks big picture type, great thinker, and he sees sort of the wisdom in sometimes programs that might be a little bit controversial or risky. And he walked with me every step of the way as I was building the Wired Project. He would help me in ways that were very important because he would bring into our circle folks who were worthy, and he would feel free to denounce those who were not or who were in some ways Philistine. So I didn't have to do it. He would do it for me. He recently gave $1 million towards the construction of the Gateway Project at Westchester Community College. This is a project that will serve immigrants in that county, and there's a growing number of foreign-born folks that not just reside but work in Westchester County, a very important project to ensure opportunity for immigrants. It is something that we need to have in our future. And David will work with me, hoping that we can model that project and do something right here in southwestern Connecticut so we can do our duty and make sure that justice is served for immigrants that are not just our fellow citizens, but important to the economy of the future of this region. So I commend David Moore for his wisdom, his contribution, and the example that he sets. Let's look at some economic numbers that we have here. The unemployment number of our region, and by the way, these numbers do reflect the 20-town region of southwestern Connecticut. You can see here that our unemployment number is lower than it was, but clearly our economy is still extremely volatile. We have been unable to find the traction that you need to really build on the workforce. And we did have a low point the early part of this calendar year, and it survived for about 3 months, and then we spent the second and third quarter with rising unemployment that actually hit 8.9%. So although the numbers look better, and they seem to be stabilizing a little bit, things are extremely volatile out there, and they can move one way or another very sharply and very, very quickly. You'll note here that the labor force appears to be steady, but it's moving in the right direction. But understand there's lots of discouraged workers, and as they begin to sense the economy showing some sign of a comeback, they will come back in. And when they come back in, it brings up the number in the labor force and may very well keep us in relatively high unemployment for a long time. I point to those two boxes on the bottom, the urban areas. There is not equity in a recession. There is far more pain that is being felt in the urban districts. You'll note here in Bridgeport, and by the way, I think I saw Bill Finch, Mayor Finch from Bridgeport a few moments ago. Here he is right here. 13.3%, and Sonia, 10.8%, very high in the urban areas. The suburban areas. Now, we often point to that box of 4 or 5 more affluent towns. And you'll note that those numbers really are stuck. They have not moved in months. And as a result of it, I think we need to recognize that in the case of those towns, and it doesn't mean that someone's more important if you're laid off and you live in Greenwich than if you live anywhere else in the region, but there is a multiplier effect. There's about 4 to 5 to 1 multiplier effect, jobs lost there as opposed to the remainder of our area. That being the case, recovery is best recognized in this region when you begin to see some sharp declines in that area because it makes its way throughout the region. So far, that hasn't happened, but we're watching it closely. Let's look at some numbers here that reflect what it was like before the recession and during the recession. So if you look at the first column, it goes to December of 2006. Now, any way that you look at those numbers, they do represent structurally low unemployment. And that's what we had for about 11 years before that. Any way that you look at those numbers, you got to say that our pattern of business, which was to prepare for the day where we would have more jobs and we would have people to fill them, was the right action to take. But in a very sharp way, things changed. So you notice right up to the end column, July of 2010, a rather dramatic increase in the unemployment numbers that did represent thousands of more people coming into our workforce system. This one will give us an idea of some of the sectors of the economy. Many of them are really the engines to support the job creation and the economic growth of our region. So I'm only going to focus on a couple, but education and healthcare. Now, healthcare has been the steadiest of all of the sectors of the economy, but I point to that 0.9 growth, and this measures it over a 12-month period from November of 2009 to November of 10, and it measures the percentage of movement. It's in the plus column, but even healthcare has clearly diminished in terms of the number of jobs that are growing in that sector as well. Big hits in the financial services and stuck, clearly the engine of the economy, the highest paying jobs in our region, but it is stuck. It's any 12-month period that you look at, it's anywhere from 12 to 1,400 job loss. Manufacturing has been devastating. We have lost somewhere between 35 and 40,000 jobs in the last 7 or 8 years in that sector, and it took a huge hit during this recession. And the same could be applied here to construction, a very important part of our economy in terms of stimulating other jobs, a major multiplier sector of our workforce.